It took a lot of failure to figure out, I think, how to manage people the right way. So one thing I was taught very early on, you never worry about others, always worry about yourself. And I learned the hard way that you shouldn't do that. And if we can get that balanced out, we'll have a lot more retention here. Success is adding carriers to our portfolio that are going to take care of us and we'll take care of them, adding customers to our portfolio left and right. Everyone has a monthly goal that they need to strive for and hit.
Welcome to the Freight Show podcast. In this episode, we're joined by Shawn McLeod, president of Axle Logistics, who helped lead the company from $17 million in revenue to over $1 billion in just over 8 years. Shawn shares how a relentless sales culture, a build-your-empire mindset, and a deep commitment to customer service fueled one of the fastest growth stories in freight. We dig into the leadership lessons he's learned, scaling a team from dozens to nearly 700 employees, why culture is inseparable from strategy, and how Axle invests in training through its LaunchPad program. Shawn also breaks down the balancing act between automation and relationships, the tech bets that are paying off, and why travel restrictions are a mistake in a soft market. All right, let's dive into today's conversation. This episode is brought to you by Vooma, the back-office automation platform built for freight brokerages and 3PLs. From AI-powered document handling to streamlined workflows, Vooma helps logistics teams move faster and scale smarter. Learn more at vooma.com.
Awesome, Shawn. Thanks so much for joining us on the show. I'm excited to chat and learn more about your story in building Axle.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Shawn, maybe to kick it off, I'd love to give us the spark notes of Axle today and the journey that you've been on with the business over the last sort of 10 years. It seems like it's been an incredible ride from the outside.
Yeah, I mean, Axle today, we just moved into our new headquarters. So headquarters number 2, I guess. Number 1 is sitting right next door. This building should hold probably 915, 920 people. So we think it could probably sustain a couple of years of growth, we hope. The quicker we fill it up, I guess, the more success we're having at a fast pace.
How many people are in the team today? So your new facility.
We're just under 700 today.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your old office, your not old office, but the original office, how many folks are in that one?
So we have probably 150 in that one. So we still have our back office team sitting over there. And then, we run both models. So I had the Cradle Grade model and the Chicago model, the sales account development ops. And so the account development and the ops team sits in HQ1, and then all of 360 sits here in the new building.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
And so 900, that's awesome. And what's been the journey over the last 10 years?
So I mean, it's fast. It's hard to keep up sometimes. John, Clay, and Drew Johnson started the company in 2012, and I think their first shipment moved on the 11th of January of that year, and they had really good growth at the time, and John comes from the brokerage side of the industry, and Drew came from the asset side. So it's two different perspectives that really seem to work out well from, the level of service that Drew expects versus, the technology driven brokerage side that John expects. So worked out really well from their two different viewpoints, but they grew up together in the same neighborhood. So they had known each other for some time, and they had pretty good growth from 2012 to 2015, and they got to a point where they were looking for someone to come in and help manage the office at the time. It was like a branch manager role, and I had gone from CH to a very quick stint in the asset side of the business, and realized I didn't like selling assets. And in November of 2015, we ran into each other, had a few interviews with them. They brought me on in February of 16, and I think we were around 17 million in revenue then. And, it's just been, I say to the moon, and and it's always just been the rocket ship, right? Do things right,
Yeah,
service the way you're supposed to, you execute the way you're supposed to. We hit our first $1 billion mark last year.
yeah, that's incredible growth.
We had a huge,
Sure.
COVID. COVID was tough, but also it did help with the growth side of it. From the idea that we're going to not take advantage of the market and the margins and just grow volume and customers as much as we can. And in 21, we had the leap from 120, it was
Wow.
170 million to 521. So
Wow. In
it
one
was
year.
a,
God,
it
that's
was a
insane.
tough year to add, a couple hundred people quickly and train them and develop them and teach them how to sell and also broker freight at the same time. So
Yeah, there's a lot around like sort of training and onboarding that I'm curious to get your perspective on because I know that's something you guys really focus on. I am curious though, like I mean that's like phenomenal growth. Like what do you think they saw in you in bringing you in as like branch manager, and what are the things
that's
that like that have enabled you to like lead that much growth?
wasn't expecting that much growth that quickly, even though
Yeah.
at the same time I had made this business plan and when I gave it to him during my interview and I told him I thought we could hit 1 billion in 10 and we hit it in just a little over 8, I believe,
Wow.
from the time I started. But for me, I think it was more just I understood the business. I understood what they wanted out of the organization as we grew. They're very culture driven, culture protective
Mm,
people. So they they were adamant that whatever we do from a growth perspective, I follow the culture that they've always wanted and valued, which is loud, energetic atmosphere. Treat
mm,
everyone like family. Come in and grind every day and get the job done. And then they also liked my business insights into what I thought we needed to fine tune ourselves from a
mm.
just a go to market strategy from a service perspective and it was I can assume that's what they liked to me. I'm glad they definitely chose me for that. I was always looking for a role where there was, this open kind of platform. Um, you
Yeah.
know, I wanted to be able to step into an opportunity and be able to run with it and just do as much as I can. And they agreed that, I keep the culture the way they want me to, and I can run the business the way that I want to. And it's always worked out. Knock on wood. Right. So,
Yeah, I
uh,
mean, so it sounds like this sort of like combination of like a cultural foundation and legacy that you've been able to continue. I often think about culture as being actually very connected to strategy. Sometimes they like think of those as being separate. I mean, you started to talk a little bit about some of the elements of the culture that you're building, but I'm curious like how does that culture kind of like reinforce your strategy as a business? Like what's the interconnection between those two things?
it's everything. I think that if the culture were to ever shift, right, you've got to have the same mindset that we've had from day one. Our motto is build your empire. So come into Axel and you build your organization or your company within the guardrails that we provide you. So,
Mm,
when it comes to the culture, everyone's got to be on the same page. Everyone wants to achieve the same results, have the same growth. Um, you know, we want a loud sales floor. We want energy flowing at all times.
mm,
We want competitiveness out here on the floor. We still do contests throughout the company all the time, pitting teams versus each other or general managers versus each other just to create some sort of new opportunity, especially on the new sales side
mm,
in this market, which has been tough this year. So it's culture's number one and the strategy for the growth. We have to continue to make sure that we improve the culture over time and we never want to lose what we have. And it's
mm,
extremely hard and difficult to do when you continue to add more and more headcount to manage the business. So, we went through a spell where we had 3 different offices here in Knoxville. We were
mm,
so spread out that you started seeing these little microcultures of poisons pop up. And you
Mm,
could see very quickly how detrimental they could be to the team that was in that same building. So
mm,
this new building couldn't come quick enough, but um, we had to make a lot of team shifts, bring people back to the headquarters and make sure that they remain, we do, it's all about, you want to remain on track and you want to grow, but you also want to try to do your best to give them the freedom and flexibility to come and go as they please. They have lives to live, and this is a tough industry that never stops.
yeah.
Um, so we don't want to micromanage time or micromanage vacations. And um, as you grow at the pace we've grown, it's very hard. You have to add leadership levels in between, and that was always difficult for us. We're a flat company today. We've been a flat company since they started the
Mm,
organization. So adding the different layers in between have been difficult because you have, successful employees right out of college or a year and a half out that are 24 years old. And now you have to manage a team of 3 to 10 people. And I couldn't imagine managing someone at 24, 25 years old. I mean, I'm still learning today. I managed 6 people when I came to Axle. Um, and it took a lot of failure to figure out, I think, how to manage people the right way.
what have been
Out
some of
of
the
my
big like leadership lessons for you that you like? How would you describe your leadership style today, and how would you describe it? Back when you
ex
started leading folks, and what are some of like the big evolutions that you've been
my
through?
executive team tells me I'm getting too soft. Um, the one thing, to premise the leadership piece, my dad's been an executive in furniture corporations, presidents,
Mm,
CEOs. He owned his own company for the last, 11 years, and before he retired, and he was pretty much my free consultant, so to speak. So,
mm,
I would ask him questions every day. How would you handle this scenario? Or this was
mm,
brought to my plate. What are your thoughts on this? And in the beginning, I have the same mentality he does. It was more of a drive hard, push hard. I'm not worried about what you think. Just get it
mm,
done. Um, Probably not show as much empathy as you should.
mm,
Not communicate as much in the beginning. Uh,
mm,
these are all things I don't like to talk about now because I've had to work hard to fix it. But
yeah.
communication is key in everything that you do, from the the growth of an organization and the direction that you're going to take. And in the beginning, my mindset was, as long as it's what I wanted and the owners wanted, then we're just going to do it and not worry about what everyone else
Mm,
thought. And that was, I learned, 2 years in, that was not the way it could be long term. Um, and I asked for a lot of feedback. It's funny. Someone made a comment the other day. I was sitting at like 4 a.m. I couldn't sleep and I had work to do. And someone's like, you're leading an organization today. Why are you there grinding at 4 o'clock? Well, it's in me, but also it's in the team. If I'm grinding,
mm,
they're going to grind with me. So
mm,
set the example. But same thing. I ask for true, honest feedback from my team. Yes, I may be the president of the company, but I want honest feedback. If there's something I'm doing that you don't like, tell me.
mm.
Um, and I value that feedback, and that's something that 5 years ago I probably couldn't have taken. Um,
Yeah, interesting.
just didn't want to hear it. So between communication, feedback, um, leadership books are not going to work. They don't work. It's like in the beginning, I was like, man, how could I get this young group underneath of me to lead? But um, it's really, you've got to learn how to treat people with respect and be empathetic and understand what they're going through at the time. And um, but at the same time, you know, you you've you've gotta sit back and listen to them and help them be part of the decision making process.
Mm,
And I get on some of them today, especially my executive team. If they make a decision without talking to the group, that's a problem.
mm,
Um, Talk to me, that's fine, but you still got to talk to the group. Make sure you get insight from everyone, and we try to do that as much as possible from every level of leadership from the top down. So
What have you found? Like if you don't do that, have that sort of level of like engagement and buy-in from the team, like what happens when you don't move through big decisions that way?
whatever you want to roll out, you're
Yeah.
not going to have the support to roll it out. Back in the day, I think I managed 76 people at most
Mm,
before we decided to start scaling out the leadership team and the different levels. And back then, I think if we had something that we wanted to get done, whether it was a new piece of technology or a new way to price or any sort of communication around how we're going to attack our bids and RFPs, um, it was easy for me to walk out on the floor to 76 people all in one small room and say, "This is what we're going to do." And I sat in that room with them, and I could hear them. And
mm,
if they didn't do it, I would go over and approach it. But now we have a building with 150 people, and then I've got 5 floors over here that you'll see next week that
mm.
you can't do that anymore. You've got to get everyone's buy-in, and so to get their buy-in, get their feedback, and talk to them about what our thoughts and strategy are, and let them give their input. Um, in the end, if we know what's right for the organization, we're still going to move forward with it, but we do our best to make sure that everyone on the team's bought in.
Yeah, it seems like there's I mean I think this resonates. Like one of the things that I think you can like fail at both ends of the spectrum. Like it's a failure mode to just be like too dictatorial and just kind of say, hey, this is the way that we're moving, kind of get on the butt. Like at some point, especially at scale, that starts to break down. But then the flip side of that is also challenging, right? Where it's not necessarily like, sometimes you've just got to make decisions for the business. And but there's this kind of line that I think you can walk, and it sounds like is kind of how you think about it of, hey, this is the direction that we're going to go, but you're going to have a voice and you're going to, get the opportunity to provide feedback and sort of shape it.
Mhm.
But it's something in the middle.
Yeah, it definitely works, and we're still, you know, by no means are we perfect, and we still have a lot of things that we need to fix internally. But um, from that perspective, the one thing I think that I've got a team meeting coming up next week, and the one thing that I've realized is that we want their feedback and their input. But one thing that I don't see, and we'll see how this plays out, but they don't bring ideas to the table, and if we're sitting here as a leadership team and we're trying to think about all the different tools and technology that
Mm,
we need to, improve our customer and carrier experience and, create a better work-life balance or create some efficiencies internally, it's great that I have an executive team that can think out of the box on what do we have today and what do we need for the future. But we need to get the rest of this group to think
mm.
or, put their ear to the floor in the industry and see what else is out there and help bring some ideas to the table. We can't, we don't want to try to think of all of it. We need the team to be bought in. And so at some point, if you're not bringing ideas, I don't want to hear what you have to say.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. Be
but it's
part of
not a
the
bad thing. It's
solution.
not like I don't want to hear. I want to hear everyone's opinion, but get creative, think outside the box a little bit. We stay
Yeah.
too siloed sometimes in their role, and there's just so much going on within freight and managing
Yeah.
teams and worrying about fraud and everything else in between. So at some point that they got to stop and think, okay, you know what, what are 2 or 3 things that this organization's going to need either now or in the future, so we can continue to build and try to make ourselves better. And yeah.
So you guys bring on, I mean, like the sort of level of like people growth is wild. And given how important like culture is to you guys, what have you learnt about how to do that successfully? Or what are like some of the mistakes that you made along the way when you're bringing on, because like bringing on like 300 people or 200 people in a year is like a wild amount of headcount growth. Like how do you do that? Like, what is your sort of mental model for like even how to like find those people? How do you hire them? How do you train them? How do you make sure that they're absorbing all of the like culture and like and then learning the job? I mean, it seems like there's a lot there.
Well, there's one thing we realized in the last 2 to 3 years is that we're never going to get it right,
Mm,
um, you you it's a 50-50 mix when you
mm,
hire if the person is going to make it or not. And I wish the percent of longevity is better for a new hire, but um, there's nothing that you can do or say in a room from an interview perspective that's going to really help you understand how they're going to handle the pressure and the speed and the time management and
mm,
all that you have to do. Um, when it comes to managing your business and your day to day operations. Um, when we hired during 2021, that huge year and adding a couple hundred people, it was pretty much sink or swim. We're gonna
mm,
give you 30 days of training. And Allie Fraley is my, VP of learning and development. And her and her team are the ones that developed our LaunchPad training program, which is
mm,
unbelievable. Um, but back then it was her and myself training these people that would come in. And, we've always built relationships with the University of Tennessee, and that's
mm,
where the founders went to school. And we've created a really good relationship, partnership, connection there. We
mm.
have a class that we teach each
Cool.
semester there from a sales perspective.
It's a
And I'm
sales
on
class that you teach
a
there?
sales class.
Nice.
And they come in and they'll learn how to make real cold calls and hold meetings. And,
Mm.
if you land business during that class, we're going to operate it. But if you come on full time after you graduate, we'll give you that business back.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Oh, so
so
they're
it's
actually
not,
coming in and cold call, like, in a
ev-
live scenario. Wow. That's an incredible opportunity for
it's a great opportunity. It's like our
yeah,
interns. We have 20 or
yeah.
30 interns a summer. The intern awards dinner is tonight, and you come in and do it all. You learn everything about the TMS and the systems and the
Cool.
cold calling and the meeting management and having difficult conversations.
Mm,
So Launchpad has been great, but in the beginning it was like sink or swim, and we're going to teach you everything you need to know, and the rest you're going to learn by operating.
mm,
But today we have a more structured, again, Launchpad, Allie and Sarah and that whole team. It's 6 weeks, and it's everything from learning our TMS and the technology that we have and how to negotiate with carriers and all the way up to how to make a cold call and introduce yourself and pitch Axle, your go-to-market strategy to strangers on the phone and how to give rebuttals. And they have to do a lot of, role play. And then the last 2 years, it's kind of like our last 2 weeks of the training. It's kind of like a deep dive into just sales. You're
mm.
going to cold call, you're going to have somebody sit with you and we're going to listen, or we're going to make those calls for you and give feedback and, you know, um, anything else that's needed. But in the end, it's still hard. You teach so much in 6 weeks
Yeah.
and then you hit the floor and, you're given a book of business, a small book just to help you get started. So you've got to learn how to operate and balance your time
Mm.
and still make cold calls.
And so
Um,
folks start out kind of cradle to grave initially, typically.
they do.
Yeah.
I mean, we hire if we have a need for outside sales, we'll hire from outside of Axle typically, but we also will promote internally if someone wants to do that full time and they've proven themselves. But
Yeah.
yeah, most people come in. A majority of the hires come into the cradle grave side.
You mentioned on the hiring side just how like hiring I think is one of it's the hardest thing to like your point is like if you can like bat over 50%, like you're probably doing it really well. It's like it's really hard to like, fully understand if someone's going to be successful in your environment, even if like they've had a track record of success. I mean, it's been my experience, especially in like sales roles where just there's so many factors and what have you learnt about how to kind of like move the needle on that probability? Like, what have you found to be the highest signal things that you can identify about people? And like, what are the characteristics that ultimately make people successful in the role? And like, how do you try to get early signal
So it's
about
funny.
those?
We've tried personality testing,
Yeah.
and we've tried, to have people go through these like questions and they'll be rated as like a scholar or, a maverick or
Mm,
whatever that may be. And typically, if you fall into these categories, you'll have better success in sales versus management and so forth. But what we realized is that when we started having employees that were already hired take it, if we followed those processes the way we were told to do so, you would probably miss out on most of the hires that we have today that have had a ton of success and do really well.
interesting.
Um, Out of everything, I think that there are a few things that stand out to us in an interview. It's, what have you done during high school and college from not just sports, but from a
Mm,
job perspective?
mm,
You can see a huge difference in people that grind and work
mm,
during that time versus those that have not had to.
mm,
Um, I used to think that an interviewer being nervous or fidgety when they're speaking with you at the table, it was almost like a bad quality, like they're too
interesting.
scared. But what we've kind of realized is that people that can't sit still or they move around too much, um, they almost have a lot of pent up energy, and
Interesting.
that's exactly what we need here is someone to come in and just be a ball of energy that's raring to go all the time.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of success with that, and it's not about, what's on your resume and your past experiences. We almost want to teach people that don't have experience because I think that, there are locations that probably teach a lot that you don't want them to learn, treat
Mm,
care and respect, take care of your customers, pick up the phone,
mm.
day or night, things like that. Other companies may not require that, but we do. And it's still, a work in progress from the hiring side. But, um, I can tell, I go to the team immediately. Hey, we do like every Monday. So this Monday we had a new hiring class of 20, 21 people. When you go and talk to these individuals, do they shake your hand or
Mm,
encourage me to talk? If I go and speak to them, do they look you in the eyes or do they kind of shy away from it?
mm.
Um, I'm batting pretty well on the percentages of people that won't make it based on just small things like that.
Is that
You
right?
know,
Interesting.
if it used to be, when we had smaller classes or even during like an interview, we would have a few chairs down in the lobby at
Mm,
HQ1. And I tell all of my executive team, if you walk by, an interviewee sitting down there,
mm.
just sit down and strike up a conversation with them and just see how they respond to you and talk to you. Um, that still doesn't mitigate the fact that you can be everything we want you to be, but it still doesn't alleviate the fact that they're long, hard hours that you have to work in the freight industry, and your work life balance, especially the first 2 years, probably doesn't exist as much as you want it to. Now, there are things you can do better in your day to day process to probably not have to deal with a lot of issues at night, and we try to teach that and beat it into their heads. But um, it's just a different animal. You can be the best salesperson in the world and land. I've had reps come in and they'll land 15 new customers in their first 90 days, yet
Wow.
they leave. I feel like
Mm,
cold calling and landing business is the hardest part of the job, and they leave because, the operational side and the phone calls after hours, it's just not for everybody. So that's our biggest struggle today. Um,
yeah, that's interesting.
our work life balance, trying to improve a quality of life that, you know, 10 years
Yeah.
ago, even 5 years ago, I didn't care about that, where I do a little bit more today for the
And is that,
employees.
I'm curious about, yeah, how you think about retention because I've spoken with other brokerage leaders who have when they look at their like cohorts of teams that join, it really is when you start to look in the like out years of like 2, 3, 4 years when you build up a ton of experience and a big book of business that people are able to become really successful. And so you sort of need this, you need to be able to like get people to that point. Like, is that how you think about it? Or like, what's the role? I mean, yeah, like how do you sort of like think about even as you model out the next few years of growth, like what is the core driver there for you? Is it like hiring really great people and some amount of them are going to be successful, and that's kind of how you're going to be able to like continue on the trajectory? And what role does like retention play in how you think about things?
Think about retention every day.
Yeah.
Allie sends me a report at the beginning of every month for the month prior for any turnover. And we were actually talking this morning because it's a fine balance. People come to our industry because there is good money to be made from a commission standpoint, right? Um, but the base pay is never great to start out. We leverage a lot of the growth and the income on the commission side as a motivator to get people to come in and work hard. And I think that long term, I don't know if, the base pay will probably need to have, be adjusted at some point.
Mm,
But I don't think that's necessarily a keeper of people. I think it's how we sell ourselves internally to our employees when they come in. If we have turnover, I mean, the way our business is set up, you come in as a consultant on the 360 side. You can work your way up into a team leader role, and then you can work your way up into a general manager role and so forth,
mm,
and build teams under you. But um, depending on the need of the team, depends on how much business you're given when you're hired. We always want to give someone, a few customers to start out with that's
mm,
going to help them from a commission standpoint, which will help out with the base pay that we start out. But um, you have issues where, people from the same hiring team, one person's given, I don't know, three customers that can generate, $20,000 a month in gross profit. And then another team, that person may be put into an opportunity where they get, $30,000 or more in gross
mm,
profit. And it's just based on the need of the team. And we try to do a personality fit. And
mm,
people are like, why didn't I get put in that spot? It's one thing I was taught very early on. You never worry about others, always worry about yourself. My GM at CH, my first general manager, James Barker, was awesome. And that's the first thing he taught me,
mm,
was because I always worried about everybody else and what they were doing, and never worried about myself. And I learned the hard way that you shouldn't do that. And if we can get that balanced out, we'll have a lot more retention here. I mean, the building is great. We spend a lot of money on culture and activities and just a great place to work.
yeah.
I mean, you've got a huge gym downstairs. You've got a full size or a full half court basketball downstairs. The swing suite opened yesterday. If you want to go and hit golf balls, there's pool tables or ping pong tables on every floor. It's just a great feeling and a great place that you want to be. So we do everything we can to make it comfortable and enjoyable.
Mm,
It's just people themselves have to work through not worrying about what everyone else is getting or doing, and just focus on their own growth and their own opportunities. And they would probably have a lot more success if they did.
mm.
So that's part of the thing that we can't control, but we try to as much as we can.
As you think about the areas, it sounds like there's a lot of people that come in and can be successful from a sales perspective, which is often the hardest piece, but then the kind of like just the volume of work that's required to be able to move freight ends up being overwhelming, especially given that early on you kind of got to grind through it. Like what are the big levers that you think about that you think that you can pull over the next few years? Like what are the sort of buckets of work or workflow? Like how do you address that? Is it process? Is it technology? Is it
We think we've got the process down, right?
yeah.
I like both models in our business, and I think there's a need for both from either an enterprise level account perspective or even, we run enterprise level accounts on the cradle to grave side. They're just a little bit harder to manage because of the way the team structure is created within the company. But,
Mm,
um, I think that when it comes to actually just building out the teams for the future, it's hard to teach anyone how to be organized. And time management is something that we bring up in every one of our new hire
Mm,
meetings and luncheons. What's one thing we need to learn quickly? Well, you need to learn how to manage your time quickly, structure your day.
mm,
Typically there's a good time of day that you need to cover your freight, typically in the morning from
mm,
7 to 10:30 or 11. Um, it's hit or miss on cold calling, especially right now. The industry's tough to get people on the phone and the market's soft, so no one really technically needs help.
mm,
So whether you make a cold call at 8 in the morning or 4 in the afternoon, I don't think as much of a difference as it used to be.
mm,
Um, and so it used to be you get up first and you make your cold calls as early as you can and get people before they get into their own grind of the day.
mm,
Um, so I think that time management's huge to be successful, but in the future, it's really coming down to technology. When you think about tech, I always, before I really understood what to look for, how to look for it,
mm,
I had a couple good friends in the industry say, well, listen, you need to look at whatever you do multiple times over and over and over, day in and day out. That's where you need to start focusing and honing in on what tech you need to add so you can try to automate that process. And I've got a guy that, he runs reports every day and looks at multiple touches within
mm,
our TMS every day and figures out a way to automate that touch. Do we really
mm,
need to sit here and check a box to say that this shipment's ready to bill a customer? No.
mm,
If you have the right technology on the front end, from
mm,
an invoicing perspective, for example, that ensures that all of the paperwork's there. It can tell if there's, if there are 6 pages of a bill of lading, all 6 are there. It can tell if the signature's in the right place.
mm,
It can read a document and tell you if it's legible.
mm,
All of those things, we do that with Navix, and so this huge process that took 50 people now takes 3 to 5,
mm,
and so that speeds up that process. Yet I still have someone going in and rechecking the paperwork again and then checking a box ready to bill, for example. And so he'll find something like that. Do we really need to be checking this box? No. So as soon as, Navix says the shipment's ready to be invoiced, just he's now automated the process.
mm,
Um, Same thing with pricing, right? It's like you get hundreds of pricing requests from customers a day. Number one, how can you price that many quickly?
mm,
There are customers and shippers out there that want the best price, and there are some that want the quickest solution so they can move on to their next, task at hand. So you need to be able to respond quickly. So that's where, we work with you and Vuma and we're trying to feed as much pricing tools. We have 3 different tools we use and we're going to feed them into one,
yeah,
but then we're having success with reps that are you testing the auto reply with the rate that we built through our algorithm, and the auto reply is winning them freight that they've never been able to win before. So does that
yeah. We've
improve quality? Yes. In the day to day, does it save time? Yes. Does it make you be able to focus your efforts on sales or customer service or
mm.
relationships? 100%. So
I think there's something powerful in the framing there that I've seen in working with brokerages is that there's usually not like a silver bullet in the sense. I mean, there's obviously going to be some like big gaps of inefficiency, but a lot of it is this just journey of like chipping away at productivity and then reassess. I mean, even like, your example with Navix, you implement that, but then there's still sort of the next wave of it. And you're never really done in this with this sort of stuff. And so it's like this continuous kind of chipping away so that, every year you look back and you've got, you know, it kind of accumulates into like pretty dramatic shifts in people's
yeah,
productivity.
as soon as you think you have something figured out, there's always going to be something different that's going to hit your plate, from a tech perspective. I don't know. I think that in our industry, it used to always be back in the day in my CH days. You pitch your tech and you've got something that no one else has. And And it's come such a long ways today, and it's become so much more affordable than it used to be in the past.
Mm,
Just about everyone has tech, so it really comes down to, service and execution. So on the execution side, you can use your tech to help you execute quicker and more efficiently.
mm,
Whether it's auto updating your shipments via track and trace, and you know, um, something that we haven't incorporated yet, but AI on the inbound call side, just to help improve that process. We have so many missed calls in a day. We can always get better at answering the phones. But
mm,
what it really comes down to is how can we make our employees' lives easier, or maybe bring some sort of outside of the box, solution to a customer via tech that they have never thought of because they
mm.
don't see the same things we do every day.
Interesting.
Um, I just want to be cautious. I don't want the tech to replace the human aspect when it comes to, having conversations with your customers and
Mm.
building relationships with carriers. It's going to be a fine balance. It's just like you said, we're going to add it and we're going to try to evolve it over time and see what works and what doesn't work. But
Yeah, I've always appreciated I mean, it seems like a big part of the DNA at Axle is a very like customer driven, strong sales culture. And you started to touch on it, but what is your framework for thinking about where you want to make sure that your team stays very focused on it and like doesn't kind of interrupt the relationship? And what are the areas where you are like comfortable trying to like move towards higher levels of automation? What's your like, framework for thinking about that?
that's a tough one. That's always the question: how far can you push it without affecting the relationships? But
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer that, because there are customers that they don't worry about the relationship. They want to get their freight picked up and delivered on time.
Hmm.
They want it to, want to protect themselves from fraud or whatever it may be, and with a competitive price, and they're happy with that. And then we have customers that, if you don't speak to them on a regular basis, you will lose freight,
Mm,
or you make your customer feel like they've been forgotten.
mm,
And I had a team lead today that they said, we just got back from this trip to see, these three customers, and they went to see them because the business had fallen off, and the manager that was running that business is no longer with the company. And
mm,
they're just like, we don't know what happened, but they never reached out. They never spoke to us anymore, and we just didn't feel valued. So
mm.
it's a fine line. I don't know how to answer that question, because you want to automate as much as you can, but at the same time you can't, because I think it will affect your relationships, long term. And I don't know, that's also the fun part of the job. It's part of the culture. It's, you know,
Yeah.
hammering freight every day is not always fun, but speaking with customers and getting into solution design and traveling to see shippers and other parts of the country, that's the fun part of it. You don't want
Mm,
to replace it with a AI talking to them, but at the same time, AI will build up a quicker response for them if it's something simple that they need. So we'll have to figure it out. We're still in the infant stages of it, because I think, someone called me out in a podcast that I did last year. It's like, I never will have AI in this company ever, is what I said. And obviously I got it today. I just want to make sure that we do it the right way, and that's going to benefit all parties involved,
yeah. Yeah. Look, I mean, I think it makes sense to be very thoughtful around it. And I don't think that these things have to be in conflict, actually. I mean, if you've got like an AI running a QBR with a customer, like then, we're probably not quite there yet, but some of the things that I think, like we see this on the quoting side, for example, where it's really, I believe that like, at least for like, there's a good part of the shipper market, customer market today that does really value that human touch, especially for the like smaller shippers where you're like, a bit of a strategic logistics partner to them, that relationship really matters. But I don't think that like often that is built by having conversations with them, like actually getting on the phone and having those calls. But there's a lot of the execution that isn't really relationship building. And, I think that there's this model where you can, a lot of even the like quote requests where they sort of come back, it's folks kind of writing like a 2-line email with a number, and that's probably not building the relationship, right? It's like, having the conversation at the beginning or the end of the week about, what are they struggling with? What's the outlook look like for the next month, et cetera. And so, I think where you can find those opportunities to create space for more of that seems to be the like win-win scenario.
I agree.
Um,
There's a lot of technology out there, though. The hard part is, what is out there. It's like the minute one thing pops up, then there's 10 more of the same,
yeah.
and then you've got to try to figure out, again, it's all relationship based, right? When I look at tech, the first thing I do is look at, well, who do I know that's in that field? You and I did a panel at TIA that time,
Hmm.
and just that connection for that day um, made us go to you for the pricing piece of it, and the auto rating and the quoting through email and I know we're having conversations on some other pieces of tech as well. So it's, for me, it's all relationship based and who you speak to and who you get to know. And through these events, there's just so many of them. It's just difficult to find out, and everyone tries something different, and
Hmm.
everyone throws stats out there that sometimes I find hard to believe. And, um, prove it, like, show it to me, show me what you've
Right.
done, but they won't. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I'm a big believer in trying to put your money where your mouth is with this sort of stuff. But I
yeah,
agree. I mean,
we have
yeah.
one, yeah, if there's like one downfall that we have as an organization, we move slow when it comes to changes like that, because we try to dig in and make 100% sure that it's going to work and do what we say it's going to do, and
Hmm.
add the value that it's going to add where it needs to be added. And um, we're very, very slow moving when it comes to that, but it works out so far.
Yeah. 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 There's different ways to approach it. You probably have a higher hit rate. And then there's others that will be more experimental and, but I think both approaches can work. I have seen both work. What do you, it's obviously been a challenging market. You guys have found ways to grow throughout it all. How have you navigated the last couple of years? What have you learnt about, how to continue to like move the business forward in difficult market conditions?
I mean, the market's only as tough as you make it out to be. If you listen to everyone that's out there today, it's kind of it just beats you down, right?
Mm,
Um, if you try to always look at things, we look at everything in terms of like market share. We're still very small in the grand scheme of things. There's just so much business out there. One thing that John and Drew had done from day one is not only did they hustle the phones and set the example with the team, but I've
mm,
done the same thing. And we have a huge focus on sales. Um, Everyone here sells all the time. I told somebody on lunch right before our podcast, I'm like, man, I had this cold call today and it was brutal. Sometimes I'm on it and sometimes I'm not. But in the end, I can still finagle my way through a conversation to at least show where we can add value.
mm.
Um, and that's one thing we push hard out here. Success is, you know, adding carriers to our portfolio that are going to take care of us and we'll take care of them, adding customers to our portfolio left and right. Everyone has a monthly goal that they need to strive for and hit. If they don't hit it, that's fine, but show the effort.
Mm.
And you know, everything here is just sales focused and sales driven. That's why we grow the way we do. Um, Technology does help us from that standpoint, but just starting to really help us
Mm.
in the last 6 to 8 months. It's just the work ethic that we portray here, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier with culture. Um, you can't sit out here on this floor. You'll see it when you come. You
Mm.
can't sit on this floor in a sales role and not sell. You're going to feel extremely uncomfortable sitting at a desk quiet, with the vibe that goes on each one of these floors when people
Mm.
are hammering their phones.
I love that.
So that's where, I think that's where we have success is, yes, we do push hard to land business and,
Yeah.
um, take care of customers and carriers and our employees. But at the same time, I don't think there's ever, especially in the last year and a half, as the market slowed down, starting in March of 23, pre-COVID or post-COVID, and, you know, we push everyone to get out and see our customers. We travel as much as we can. During an environment like today, when I hear some of my buddies that are in the brokerage world saying that their travel restrictions have been put in place, I'm like, you're crazy.
Mm.
If it's anything that you don't want to restrict is travel. We have reps on the road all day, every day, year
Mm.
round. Um, and you've got to get out and still see and have, customers and have these conversations and add value. But, um, we're really good at servicing business. I've been in so many meetings this year. As the more I travel more when I get worried more about the economy slowing down, and I want to hear what's going on from everybody else in our industry. And one thing that I hear in every single meeting I go to is you all have the best customer service of any freight broker that we've ever worked with.
Wow.
And it's just something that we push hard. We have a lot of, weirdly, we somehow have a lot of Google reviews for still a small broker in the grand scheme of things, in my opinion. And I was telling somebody a few weeks ago, it's like, yes, we have a lot of good reviews. No, we don't pay people for our reviews like people want to throw out there. Um, we will reach out. We'll find someone if they leave a 1 star, but we don't find them to have them remove the review or change the review. We find them because we want to fix whatever issue we caused
Mm.
that caused someone to be unhappy with us.
Yeah.
And so my entire executive team, if a 1 star hits, you better have an answer for me in a couple hours of what happened and how we're going to fix it internally so it doesn't happen again. And we're always on the floor walking around talking, listening to people on the phones, and I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like for you, there's just a really like strong focus on the fundamentals, right? You're like, you've got to be out there.
Everything.
You got to be hitting the phones. You got to be providing great service, and that everything else is kind of like trying to support those objectives.
Absolutely.
Shawn, one last question for you. I'm curious as you think about folks, it could be within the industry, like other leaders in the industry, or even outside of the industry that have like influenced your leadership approach. Who comes to mind, and what have you learned from them?
Wow. From the industry, um,
Or outside of it?
yeah,
Who-
outside of it, well, I mentioned my dad in the beginning just
Yeah.
because I've always, watched him and his success as he's grown over the years. Um, uh, the work ethic I think that I have probably comes from him. He's on my case
Mm.
now about working too much, yet he was a Monday through Saturday guy. He was out of the house at 5 a.m. and he was home at 7 every night. So,
Wow.
I think from leadership, he's definitely been the head of that. But, there's a gentleman here locally that when we were doing personality testing, we don't work with him today, but it wasn't because they did anything wrong. It was more because um, we just were afraid that we were going to miss the talent that
Mm.
we didn't want to miss. But he gave me a lot of insight early on into how I manage and
Mm.
from the conversations he had with the employees on the floor, what worked and what didn't work. And, that really helped me kind of structure myself a little bit better or ask the right questions internally. But I don't want to say names, but there are a couple guys. Chattanooga is always a melting pot of brokerages, and there are 2 to 3 gentlemen down there that from day one, if I need something, I can still reach out to them and talk to them, and
Mm,
and they give me advice on what they've done in the past that helped them, and
mm,
or what they've seen today, because they're still in the industry. They just aren't in the freight brokerage side, and
mm,
hey, this is what we see when we go to other organizations that work or don't work. Don't make this mistake, or hey, we see this and it does work. I don't think there's any one thing. Like I said, leadership. It's been so much trial and error, and
yeah.
just sometimes I'll watch YouTube videos about things like, man, that sounds like a good idea. Let's try it. But
Mm,
um, I mean, I'm probably my biggest. I'm hard on myself. I think I'm good at being a leader through setting the example. I don't know if I'm always the best at um, speaking the right way to
Well,
someone.
yeah, I mean, I think some people would argue that's probably the most powerful form of leadership, especially in a business like brokerage, right? Where it's,
Hmm.
it's a hard job. And so being able to lead from the front, it seems like you really do like chart that course.
Yeah,
Sean,
you have to. So
thank you so much for the conversation. It's been awesome getting to learn more about your like philosophy, and congrats again on everything you've built with Axel. It's really
thank
impressive.
you. Thanks for having me.
It's been fun.
Podcasts are my thing sometimes. It's hard to slow down and think about what you've done in the past because you're always thinking about the future, right? So it's good to do these and kind of reflect a little bit. Helps you think about some things that you missed in the past too that you should probably have done. So it's good.
Well, I've enjoyed it. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.